So I took one of these concrete water pipes from my contractor and we made a design with a team where we added windows, we added bathroom inside, we added a multi-purpose room, which is a living room, bedroom, and with a space as small as 20 square meters, we can actually have all of the basic needs of people inside the concrete water pipe.
We hope so something like this comes up and gets implemented in the city of Mumbai, which is 50% almost occupied with slums. I have seen a lot of your designs and many of them resemble a structure like egg. Is that like a leaving a signature mark kind of thing?
I really believe that the most powerful designs in our planet is the design of nature. And when you look at nature, there is no right angles, there is no square, there is no rectangles. Everything in nature is much more intelligent.
What is Metaverse and what is the future of Metaverse?
I think Metaverse is another kind of space. And we can occupy both this space and the Metaverse space.
Do you think there are any drawbacks to maybe this thing being implemented in future?
In everything, there is drawbacks. In everything, there is the danger of obsession and overdose.
Last question, what is your dream? Hello everyone, welcome back to Speaking Real Estate Podcast. Today with us, we have a renowned architect from Hong Kong, founder of Cybertecture, Mr. James Law. His designs are internationally recognized and also he had been recognized as the global youth leader in 2011 by the World Economic Forum. James, welcome to the podcast and I'm really delighted to host you and very excited about this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Your designs are very futuristic and innovation, and I want to dive deep into your thought process, your lifestyle, your working patterns and styles, and what's your typical framework or a particular framework in approaching a project as well. So before going into your working patterns and about your designing, your firm and everything, I want to start off with your past, your upbringing, and what made you pursue or got interested in architecture.
Thank you. So actually, I have a very lucky life because I wanted to become an architect when I was 7 years old. I come from a very ordinary, slightly poor family background, and we used to live in a slum in Hong Kong. And so growing up was always living in not so ideal conditions. I think that made me always think about, what the world around me can be. And when I was 7 years old, something happened, which was I turned on the television and I saw a movie about an architect. And the movie was called The Fountainhead, which is a very famous book made into a movie about a hero who becomes an architect, who changes the world and improves the world through his designs. And when I saw that movie when I was 7 years old, I was blown away. I was just totally inspired. And I told my parents that I wanted to be an architect. And I think ever since then, my whole life, my education, my passions, my inspirations have always been in this direction of trying to achieve this dream of hopefully being a little bit heroic about changing the world, designing the world, building the world into a slightly better place. And I'm very grateful to God, my family, all of my friends and supporters who have backed me up with the efforts to allow my talents to become my life. And that is why I'm an architect.
So from wanting to become an architect and getting inspired by designs and architecture around you to becoming an architect who is world-renowned and laying down the foundation of a firm such as Cybertecture takes some efforts, takes some experience to make that happen. So I want to know that how was your early career like before starting Cybertecture, and how did you build yourself into becoming what you are?
Well, I think the journey is very important. And there are several key milestones in my journey that has led me to where I am today. So the first thing was when I studied architecture, I went to a school of architecture that surprisingly was very innovative. So I studied at the Bartlett School of Architecture in London, and I studied under a professor who has inspired me throughout my whole career. His name is Peter Cook, and he was a architect who really thought out of the box. And so during my architectural education, I had the opportunity to study not just the technical side of architecture, but the wondrous, imaginative, creative side of architecture, which I think was the first milestone to launching my own passions for what I call cybertecture. Then the second milestone was after I graduated, I got the chance to move to Japan and work in Tokyo for one of the famous architects in Japan. And her name is Itsuko Hasegawa, and she was also one of my mentors. And during my time in Japan, which was an exceptionally interesting culture of design and technology, of nature, I also managed to get very inspired by how different places and different cultures and different architecture can be so interesting, can be so impactful on people's lives, and how they can create a whole different kind of society using architecture. So that was my second milestone. So having done an education that was very creative, and then having the chance to experience a very creative culture of architecture, then I started to work in big firms. I worked in a big American firm called Gensler, where I rose to become a director. I also worked in some Hong Kong big architectural companies. And during those years, it was like being an apprentice, right? You have to learn the trade. You have to learn all the skills, the management, the organization of what to do in a big company. And having absorbed that over just less than 10 years, I decided it was the right time for me to do my own thing. Because I think what happens is at the very beginning, I knew I wanted to have my career as the vehicle for attempting to reach my dreams. And as much as possible, the ability to have your own company, to have your own firm, to have your own team, is in fact that vehicle that you steer on your journey of your career to the really, I think, exploratory places that you want to go. You might want to still work for a company, but you have to then follow the direction of that company or your employer. And if you are your own boss, then you can start to make those decisions yourself. And on the creative level, on a kind of exploratory level, on a kind of, entrepreneur level, I wanted to see how far I can go. So after doing all of those years working in big firms, I started my own firm, very small. At the very start, only 3 people. And I think it was one of the, of course, major milestones in my life. I think same for many entrepreneurs. The moment they start their own thing is a major milestone. And I think the journey has been tremendously rewarding. Of course, I think everybody's entrepreneurial journey has a lot of ups and downs. But we have continued to learn, continued to grow, continued to try our best to follow our mission of Cybertecture. And like any journey that is worthwhile doing, it is not about the destination. There's no destination, right? We do many projects in different circumstances, different places, and we just keep going and keep learning, and hopefully the journey becomes more and more rewarding as we pursue it.
It's definitely something to look up to, how you coming from a small background in Hong Kong to having one of the most international renowned firms in this world. It's really inspiring. So, how did you decide the name Cybertecture for your firm?
Right. So the real answer is it was a little bit of luck because just before I started my own firm, I was making a project that was using a lot of technology, which is my passion. And after the completion of that project, which was a shopping mall, I was interviewed by the press. And it was actually in a CNN interview that the interviewer asked me, like, oh, James, you're an architect, right? I said, yes, I'm an architect. But you're also handling a lot of this kind of technology in this shopping mall. I said, yeah, I mean, it's also my job because I wanted to fuse technology and architecture together. So the lady who interviewed me said, so you're kind of like a cyber architect, right? So I said, that's interesting terminology. So maybe I'm starting to become like a new kind of architect called a cyber architect. And as I used the word more, I realized architecture was changing. In a way, it is. Everything we're building around us is using a lot of technology. So the word cyber and architecture started to fuse together and become this word Cybertecture. And that's how the name came to be.
I think it totally does justice to the kind of work you do and the kind of work you have been delivering. So I want to come to one of your projects and have a discussion about it, which is micro homes inside a concrete pipe OPod. So what is the thought process behind building that micro home, and how is it causing a change, and why is it needed and helpful for the world?
So I think almost 15 years into my own journey of cybertecture, I started to see that the important thing about architecture is that it tries to solve the problems for people. And increasingly, I was seeing all around the world, but starting mainly in my own city of Hong Kong, there was a big problem with people who cannot afford to live in the housing. The cost of housing was rising so much in these major cities that many people were being left behind. They were living in slums, they were living in what we call subdivided apartments, living in tiny caged homes. And as an architect, I started to really feel very conscionable about this because, we can make magnificent architecture, but we have to remember it is for people. So I was thinking, how can I use my skill, my talent, my ideas, my creativity to create an architecture that speaks of a different kind of building that could be tremendously different by being very affordable, being very fast, very simple, to allow these people who cannot afford the money to live in a traditional building,
Yes.
but be able to have shelter. And one day I was at one of my construction sites and I saw the contractor was laying large concrete water pipes in the ground. And suddenly I have this idea. I thought, wow, these concrete water pipes are not so expensive. They're already being manufactured. They're large enough for us to occupy. And even though they are not so spacious for people to have a big home, they can still create good shelter. So I took one of these concrete water pipes from my contractor and I said, let me experiment with it. And we made a design with a team where we added windows, we added bathroom inside, we added a multi-purpose room, which is a living room, bedroom. And with a space as small as 20 square meters, we can actually have all of the basic needs of people inside the concrete water pipe. Once we created this project, we showed it to the governments and we showed it to the public. And suddenly there was a groundswell of interest in this project. I think it really touched the nerve because this project represented a way of thinking differently about how architecture can solve the housing problem. If we can design and build differently, maybe we can solve the affordability problems for people around the world. And whilst I don't suggest at any one point that this is the definitive solution, I think this is what is truly magnificent about design, is when we are able to think out of the box, to disrupt the traditional ways we make something. And in doing so, we can try to solve and alleviate the suffering of people by making something that is good for them, affordable for them, available for them. And that is why we did it.
I think so. This is something that many areas, many cities in the world where slums are there, and I feel is a very innovative design which could change the whole dynamics of that area. And maybe we hope so something like this comes up and gets implemented in the city of Mumbai, which is 50% almost occupied with slums. So definitely let's hope for the best. You also believe a lot in modular architecture, and you believe that in the future that is going to become a major part of development and how development and construction will be carried on. And I believe that's being implemented a lot in China. So if you can explain what is modular architecture and how is it going to mold the future of construction of buildings?
Right. It's a very good question. I really believe in modern design because we can see in this world now, everything is changing very fast. And I think people are living new models of life, much more modern than before. People have cell phones, people have the internet, people have electric cars, people are traveling, people are surfing the internet. And I think the modern life has to be reflected, especially in the buildings that we build. Because if we make a building that is not modern, then it will become very irrelevant very quickly. So modern design is about modern lifestyle. And modern lifestyle gives a lot more choices and a lot more kind of creative potential for people in their life. And that's why I love modern design. And I think in modern architecture, there is so much potential to become almost another piece of technology that empowers your life. So now we are talking about buildings which can be built differently because they're modern. For example, modular architecture is a building where instead of building from the ground up using concrete, we can use prefabricated modules in factories and then piece them together, plug them together, and build it faster, differently, and also maybe cheaper and in a much more high quality way. This is a modern way, right? So we are expecting when we buy like an iPhone, everything is installed, is very high quality, is fast to your hands. Same with the building. Maybe in the future, it's not 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It's 6 months. You can have a building ready for people to live. That's one aspect. The other aspect is, I think the modern architecture will start to play a role more than just a building. Imagine one day the building is taking care of you. So not only are you going there back to sleep, to rest, to eat, but the building all the time is monitoring your health, guiding you what you should eat. Are you sleeping enough? Are you taking enough nutrients? Are you exercising enough? The building can start to do that using technologies like sensors, with data mining about your life, and then guide you and remind you, oh, today you should go to the gym, you should do some exercise for you to be healthy and take care of you and your family and your friends, and connect you with the rest of the world, connect you with doctors, connect you with fitness instructors, connect you to friends around the world that you can maybe share knowledge and exercise together, etc. So I really think modern architecture is more than just the building. It is a technology envelope around you that can empower you to live a much better life. And I really think that we should look in that direction, because more and more in this hectic life that we are all living, we need the space around us to take care of us. And that is also very important.
I believe there is a huge scope of implementation of this in India, because it is India, like maybe in the top tier cities, technology is being implemented and it is being given importance in terms of making the infrastructure, making the building sustainable. But still, there's a lot of scope, and the way you explained it, how the architecture could be used to drive the lifestyle of the people, could be a very innovative way to use technology and mix it up with architecture.
Yeah.
So coming to the concept of a city being centralized and decentralized, I believe you are a huge believer in building a city in a decentralized manner. I would want you to explain this concept and give examples of centralized cities and how you believe in the functioning of a city as decentralized. And after that, I want to talk about the Project Eden.
Oh, right. Okay. So, yes. So, we can really categorically say that the most complicated, the most massive architectures that we do on this planet are our cities. And our cities have been around for more than 100 years. They were started in, the late 19th century, early 20th century. And cities have grown to occupy more than half the population of the world are living in cities. And so they are tremendously massive pieces of architecture. And many cities have grown to be very complicated, very dense, and they've grown out of a kind of organic way, right? They've changed over time. Today, some 100 years into our so-called modern cities, we've started to see that many of them are showing the same symptoms that are problematic for our daily life. Here in Mumbai, I'm constantly in the traffic, whether I'm going north or I'm going south. I can see that the prices of the apartments and the homes in the center of the city down south is very expensive. And then people have to live very far before they can afford to have a nice home. So these are some of the problems that essentially the traditional city have. And the reason why they have this is because they're called centralized cities. They're centralized because they started at one point. This is like the most important part in South Bombay. There, the fort area, the port area, the arch of the gates of India, and you grow from one point. And so everything is congested there. And over time, the problems overtakes your solutions. You cannot solve it because there are just too many complicated things like traffic, pollution, infrastructure problems. So more or less, centralized cities are what I call legacy cities.
Yes.
They were created in the 20th century, but now we're in the 21st century. Now, what's different about the 21st century is several things. First of all, we have many, many more billions of people. And these people are more and more coming to the cities. So they're creating an even bigger problem. How do you house them? How do you give them space? How do you give them employment? And this is one of the challenges of the new city. The second thing is technology. So we already know from experiences like COVID, many companies have started to work from home.
Yes.
Many staff are on Zoom. They can work from home. They can work from anywhere. And the companies and the economy can still continue. So the question is, why are millions of people on the metro, on the bus, on the train, in the traffic, trying to get to the office every day, and then spend many hours coming back afterwards. Technology is allowing us to be connected, interacting, working together without physical space, I can say. So the new cities, the future cities, should embody what I call physical space and non-physical space. Okay, so how do we do this? First of all, if you think about the network of the internet, it is not one server, millions of servers talking together. And that's why it is so fast. That's why it is so powerful. So a city can be the same. Imagine a city where we don't need to have everything in the center. Everything becomes distributed. You have a district which is for culture. You have a district for finance. You have a district for sports. You have a district for health, etc. And then everything is connected through a network, such as autonomous cars,
Yes.
self-driving cars, or even flying drones. You can have the Hyperloop connecting different districts, shrinking the time that you need to travel without the need to be in your own car, in the traffic jam, all going to the same place. You have AI organizing your schedule. So not everybody has to go to the hospital at the same time. AI will organize different people at different times to go to that district. This whole distributed network has the potential to be much more intelligent, much more capable to deal with the billions of intelligent people that have so many requests. And that's why we really believe in this. And you mentioned the project Eden.
Yes.
So Eden is a project we're doing in Saudi Arabia, which is a new extended district of Riyadh city, which is planned for several million people to live there in the future, but not to repeat the legacy cities of the past, but rewrite the books about how you can make millions of people live happily together in a city environment, but without those problems. So in that Eden project, the whole distributed, decentralized approach is created out of a grid where each node of the grid has a mega structure that houses a couple of 100,000 people. And each node has its own purpose. Some are technology nodes, some are cultural nodes, some are housing nodes. And these are all connected by autonomous vehicles that you can jump on and off, and it will transport you in an intelligent way to avoid the traffic. In between all of these nodes, we also have a lot of public space. And the public space is used for three things. One is to generate energy. So we have solar fields that is collecting energy from the sun. We have water reservoirs that is collecting water and cleansing water. And then we also have agriculture so that you're growing fresh food for the city. Now, because it's all distributed, as the city grows, we can then repeat these reservoirs, solar farms, and then also the agriculture to make sure we have enough food and resources for the city as it grows, which is not currently the case. Currently, we are really struggling to feed our cities with the right amount of energy, water, and food. But in a distributed city like Eden, we can do that. So I think fundamentally Eden is a kind of recoding of what a city can be. And in doing so, I think elevates the possibilities for happy, efficient, modern living in a city to really flourish by getting rid of the old traditional problems that we are facing today.
That's very innovative design. As I had went through the pictures on your website for the city of Eden, it's beautiful, it's futuristic, and it looks innovative. But at the same time, I want to know, how do you get inspiration for such designs? From where do you find that inspiring, or something that helps you in planning out the whole map of the city and planning out the whole design of the city?
So I think there's two elements to your question there. I think one is specifically about the city, and then one is specifically about inspiration.
Yes.
I think first law about the city. So I've had the luck of traveling a lot in my career, and I've also lived in many cities, Western cities, Eastern cities, Middle East cities. And so I've become very sensitive to seeing how cities operate, how they're different, how they are good in some places and bad in other places. And that's why I think I'm in a good position to try to amalgamate all of this knowledge about cities and try to kind of recode it into something that is, I think, very positive and generative for every location. So that's the city part of the inspiration. But then actually the other question about inspiration itself, it's a very mystical and mysterious question to ask. How are we inspired by environment? How are we inspired by each other? How are we inspired by nature? And I don't have a definitive answer. I think we as human beings, we are very sensitive to our lives. We're very sensitive to, the pains or the joys of our environment. And one of the things I often say is my mentor, my teacher, Peter Cook, he once described for me what is the mechanism of inspiration, which is each of us, we have a soul, and our soul is unique to us. It's like a unique filter for what we experience in our daily lives. And what is filtered into that becomes the fuel for our inspiration. So I believe that as we face every day our lives in our cities, it may be being stuck in the traffic, we realize we can design the traffic differently. Or when we see the slum, we can think, oh, maybe we can design something that could replace the slums. Or when we see the pollution or the problem with the climate in the city, we can think like, oh, maybe we can plant more trees and we develop nature into the city to bring back the environment. So all the time, I think we are being inspired around us, and we take that on board and try to use it.
I have seen a lot of your designs, and many of them resemble a structure like egg. So is there any particular thing is there anything particular which is making that design, or is that like a leaving a signature mark kind of thing?
I think whether it is a signature or not, I think that's a byproduct.
Okay.
But actually the egg or this organic form is something that I've been fascinated about, because I really believe that the most powerful designs in our planet is the design of nature. And when you look at nature, there is no right angles, there is no square, there is no rectangles. Everything in nature is much more intelligent. It is a fluid form. It is an organic form. And I think the egg shape has always inspired me to think literally out of the square box, to believe that we do not necessarily have to just stick to a grid. And in fact, now with the design software and tools that are available to us, we can make a building any shape, right? We can make it any shape. Of course, you have to be practical. Of course, you have to be wary of the costs, and you have to be wary of the materials. But the possibility of design is going beyond the box. So that's why I think in my career, the egg or the sphere reminds me always that we can go beyond what we're doing at the moment, and we can make those choices in how we design.
So coming to this point where technology and AI helps us in thinking out of the box and also expand our boundaries, how much do you implement AI in your working process?
Well, we are increasingly using AI, and we are really, really bullish about using tools like AI. First of all, fundamentally, we really believe that technology is an extension of the human creativity. So once upon a time, hundreds of years ago, you have people like Michelangelo, the sculptor, using chisels. Today, we're using the computer, we're using virtual reality, and we're using artificial intelligence to sculpt our design. So they're the tools that we are using today. And these tools are becoming more and more powerful. I think the possibilities of using these tools to design new things is something that I'm really passionate about. So I really encourage in my company a constant learning process and training process to use the latest software to allow my colleagues to explore the possibilities of going beyond the traditional way of working by using these tools. And I really think that there will be some really wondrous things coming up in this world that previously we cannot conceive or we cannot execute. But with the help of AI and new technologies, we can do that. And I think this is almost like the next renaissance that we are facing now, that we can even more unleash the possibilities of creating things that we cannot imagine before. Of course, we have some responsibility as well.
Definitely.
Not just go crazy, not just become obsessed by these tools. Use them responsibly, use them for some core values and core purpose. If we can do that, then I really think that, we can solve a lot of problems.
I do believe that you can use AI to extend your boundaries, but the initial things, the core structure or the core belief is the person driving the AI. So coming to Metaverse, I want to understand your thought on and your opinions on what is Metaverse and what is the future of Metaverse?
Right. So, I think the Metaverse for me is an extension of space. So here in this beautiful lobby, we're in a certain space, a physical space, a very beautiful, comfortable space. And it's one kind of space. I think Metaverse is another kind of space. And we can occupy both this space and the Metaverse space. I think there is really a very interesting kind of dichotomy happening, which is, we live our daily lives in the real space, but then we're also reaching out with our knowledge and creativity into the virtual space. Surfing on the internet, in a way, is already in the Metaverse. Watching a movie is kind of being in the Metaverse, in an alternative universe of a story that you're occupying. And I think what we call the Metaverse now is the most up-to-date interactive version of the movie or of the internet. So in the future, we are entering almost like in the game space. You and we can do this podcast here, or we can do the podcast inside the game. And that space is very important. Now, why is this important is this. I think that we can really connect people in the Metaverse. Like, if I wanted to speak with you 100 years ago, I need to take a horse and I have to ride the horse for 3 days from North Mumbai to South Mumbai and to meet you. And then 50 years ago, I can make a telephone call for you. And then 20 years ago, I can start to use my mobile phone to call you. And then 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, I can Skype with you. I can see you. And I can now Zoom with you. I think now, if you look at that progression with the metaverse, is we can anytime have a conversation together, play a game together, work on ideas together, collaborate together, and have a very, I think, fruitful and tactile relationship, even though we're not in the physical space. And that's the power of the metaverse. So the architecture we're building is in the physical space, but there's also architecture of the metaverse. How do you make a shopping mall in the metaverse? How do you make a resort in the metaverse? How do you make a kind of collaboration stadium in the metaverse? This is also very exciting. And like I said before, the buildings that we build should be like an envelope around us that enables us. We are doing that already. So in some of our projects around the world, we talked to our clients and we said, remember during COVID, people cannot go out. They are in lockdown. They have some emotional stress because they cannot travel. Why not give them a space in the project where when they enter into the space, they're experiencing the metaverse as a envelope. And then they can go to the beach on the Maldives, or they can climb a mountain in the Himalayas, or they could go into a forest and hang out in a kind of nature environment. This is important. So I think starting very soon, you have the merging of the metaverse and the real verse together. And in that overlap will be opportunities for a very interesting life where you're not only bound by where you are physically, but then also the possibility of experiencing anywhere, everywhere, and almost also imaginative space at the same time. So very, very powerful. And we're just at the starting point, I think.
Sounds very exciting. It is very exciting for the future. But at the same time, when it feels like you can be at the same place and experience something that's going outside your country, I believe there might be some drawbacks as well in taking away the reality from the human. Do you think there are any drawbacks to maybe this thing being implemented in future?
I think that's a very good question. And in fact, it's a very wise statement you've made. In everything, there is drawbacks. In everything, there is the danger of obsession and overdose. We give a mobile phone to a child, and if the child is 24/7 just playing on the mobile phone, on the games, whatever, this is not healthy for them. But you give them the phone, and they can connect with their friends, and then when they have difficulties, they can call their parents. Then you say this technology is fantastic. And the difference between the two scenarios is being able to avoid the obsession of technology, being able to stay healthy in mind and in balance, to use this technology to your own healthy advantage and not let it become unhealthy. So you're right. Is connecting to the metaverse going to be dangerous? Yes, maybe some danger, in the same way as if we're watching movies with too much violence, it can also be not so good for you, right? Or if you buy a car, and this is a very nice sports car, and you drive it at obsession rates, you drive it too fast, you drive it beyond your safety, then this is becoming dangerous as well. But if you are sensible, if you are in control, then the future of this technology can do you good and open up new potentials for you. And I think we have to be positive about this as well.
Definitely being positive. I feel in the end it will be the user and how he looks up to that technology and how he wishes to use that
Correct,
technology.
yeah. Well,
Coming to there are various architects around the world like who specialize particularly in interior designing, particularly in urban or master planning, particularly in elevation designing. But you are a master of all, and you seem to have specialized in each of different segments of architecture. So how did you do that? Like, you particularly specialized in a particular kind of working in that segment and then kept on adding on a new segment with your experience and time.
So yeah, I guess there are many different kinds of practices. Like you say, there are very specialist practices, and then there are also practices which are more kind of multidisciplinary. I think the reason why I wouldn't say I'm a master of everything, but why I do everything is, I really think design is not just about one aspect. I think it can be of many aspects, and it can be very relevant to be both thinking on the big scale and also on the small scale, because everything is connected. Also, I believe that every opportunity is an opportunity to learn, for me as well. So if I participate not just in the confines of one thing, but I can touch on and learn and become good at other things, I think I benefit myself both as a person and as a designer. And last but not least, really responding to what the world wants. I mean, I also want to work collaboratively with my partners and my clients. It's not just James Law wanting to do something. It is responding to what they need. Sometimes they only want to do the envelope of the building, because the building, they already plan it well. Maybe the vastu is already very good. There's no need to change it. So the architect should only focus on the part that needs to be designed and not need to change other parts. So yeah, for me, I think it's out of gratitude that I think anything that I get to design is an opportunity to learn and then to contribute.
I feel it kind of opens the doors for you to particularly serve the needs of the customer. And because if like a particular architect might be specializing in one, that's nice. But if the requirement of the client would be something else, so that would be an hindrance in the working, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's a teamwork.
That's an advantage you have.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So further, I want to have a discussion about how you see Mumbai versus how Hong Kong is, and some points of similarity and differences for the both.
Wow, that we can speak a whole day about this. So every city is very different, every culture is very different, every society is very different. I would like to comment it like this. I first came to Mumbai 13 years ago to really work on projects. And I think what I've seen even 13 years ago was the tremendous potential here in the city, but also in India. Very similar to Hong Kong, I think both places are full of people, the energy, full of very, very capable, talented entrepreneurs who are trying to, make a life, make a business, make a project, and they share that same kind of dynamism, that same kind of strong potential. And then in the 13 years since seeing Mumbai, I have seen, a lot of long-term plans now start to become real. In the same way that Hong Kong, once upon a time, we did not have the metro, we did not have the airport. Long time ago, when we made these things in Hong Kong, it elevated Hong Kong into a global city. And I can really see Mumbai with its new airports and its new roads and its new metro and new districts and new townships doing the same thing in a slightly different timing to Hong Kong, but now it is coming. So I really feel that the same dynamism that I saw 13 years ago now is having a platform to become real, having a lot of those things become good quality, and making them actually accessible to many more people. And the momentum and the trajectory is very good. And both Hong Kong and Mumbai, I think, full of hardworking people, full of people with dreams, and therefore it is powered to continue that kind of progress. And then, one last thing is, Indian people and Chinese people, we share a lot of similarities. We are humble people, we are hardworking people, we're family-orientated people, we're respectful people. And therefore, when I come here to Mumbai, I feel very at home. I've made many, many good friends. I continue to be inspired and, learn from what's happening here. And it's a real honor and pleasure that I've been able to have the opportunities to keep coming back and contribute.
You have been working, and also those projects on which you have worked in Mumbai, quite of them have been delivered as well. So how has been your experience with working with developers of Mumbai?
So, I think, just like any major city, you have many, many different developers. And I think, what I've learned is every developer has a different personality, driven by different ideals, different philosophies, big or small, different categories. Some are doing, townships. Some are doing premium office buildings. Some are doing premium residential. So every company is different. And I think I would say that there was three characteristics I've noticed. I think one is the smaller developer who is now starting to, reach into the market, and they are trying to create a name for themselves. Then another category are the more established developers who have, a quite a mature operation that is able to not only execute their projects, but also leverage off more support from international consultants, from experts in different fields. They can bring them in. And then I think the third category is the kind of the mega developers who can influence the city in terms of like the zoning and the overall city planning of the projects. And those are, very, very influential, very powerful. And, they're not only doing real estate, they're also doing transportation, logistics, retail, and everything like that. So there are many, many different kinds of developers, different scales, etc. And then I think the underlying thing is I've really seen that all developers are trying to deliver higher quality, trying to deliver better design, and then also trying to, I think, establish a brand for themselves. And that's why they're so different. So, it's really fascinating to see, different companies start up, different companies being developed. And I think it'll continue to be a very vibrant marketplace of many, many different developers.
Definitely. I would want you to add a point of how these developers can make the buildings that they are making more sustainable.
Okay, so, I think, first of all, it's important to define what is sustainability. And my personal kind of interpretation of sustainability is quite wide. It isn't just about the energy or the resource, etc. It is also about good planning. It is about good use of material. It is about good cost control and good long-term life cycle for the building. So how can developers make their buildings more sustainable? Is, I think, if they can have a broader perspective about the project beyond just delivering a product, right? To think that that building will be there for 100 years, that many generations of families and owners will own it. So the building should be of the right quality to last well, to be designed with planning that can be best utilized in an efficient way, to design it so that maintenance and operation is really well thought out, so it doesn't cause you problems later. And then last but not least, I think thinking that this building will be a contribution to the district, to the neighborhood, both in terms of its aesthetics, but then also in terms of its influence. So if a building is very green on the podium, it is not only green for the residents, but it's also green for the district, for the neighborhood. Everybody benefits. So having that wider long-term view about what is good quality sustainability for your project will help you design a product that ultimately, I think, represents a longer-term view. And that, I think, would be a way for developers to design their projects in that way.
Definitely, and being the buildings more sustainable, they will stand longer and also pass on a message on the kind of work that developers do.
Yeah.
So coming to last question, what is your dream?
Well, my dream, I think we all have dreams, and our dreams are constantly changing, fading, being renewed. But always there's a dream. At least for me, there are always dreams. And I would categorize them differently. I mean, I have, personal dreams for my family, and then I have dreams for my work and my career, my creativity, etc. But to be honest, my overarching dream, in fact, is a very humble one, is to live a balanced life, to hopefully have some luck that would keep me and my family and the people close to me, important to me, safe. We are not greedy. I'm not dreaming about becoming super wealthy or super famous or super recognized, but just to have a settled, safe, balanced life where luck is hopefully a little bit more on my side than against me. That is my dream.
So it was really insightful, and I did get a lot of learnings about sustainability, about the city being decentralized, and many more topics that we talked about. Thank you so much, James, for coming here, making this happen. It was really, really nice of you.
Thank you for having me.